Hi everybody, Kat here. Welcome to the channel. It's Friday morning, and today I thought I'd do something a little different. Thought I'd look at world news and see how it all relates to everything with the royals. So here we go. And since I live in Canada, we're going to start in Canada. Now, I spoke about her last week, Sophie Trudeau, the ex-wife of our Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Well, she's been on the TV circuit. She's doing interviews all over the place for her new book, which talks about her interests, her mental health, and her ex-husband, Justin Trudeau, to whom she's not very complimentary. And in one of these interviews recently, when asked about her relationship with Meghan Markle, that we know has gone back maybe 7 years, she said, well, I really don't know her that well. Just disregarding 7 years of photographic evidence of their friendship, Sophie Markled Meghan herself. Now, in other news in Canada, we'll start on the West Coast. Vancouver is petitioning the government to reverse a law that they put in place a couple of years ago. Vancouver decided that it was going to be a safe city for drug use and decriminalize or, just illegal drugs, no problem. If you're a heroin junkie, we've got a storefront over here. You can go shoot up safely. We've got people manning the stations and this kind of, So they basically allow every drug going on in Vancouver, and they're trying to remediate issues by having safe spaces for them and this kind of thing. Well, it's a very lefty concept that they put in place a couple of years ago. Well, now they are petitioning the government to reverse this because they're saying it's just destroying downtown. It's not working. This has gotten out of hand, and it's a social experiment that's gotten out of hand. And this has got to be, we've got to do away with, we've got to go back to criminalizing this and this kind of behavior. And our federal government is saying to them, well, whoa, hold on. We're not going to let you reverse this unless, you give us more proof that it's really a problem. What kind of proof do you need? Encampments all over city streets and the filth that goes with all of that. Crazy drug-addicted people laying all over the road and stumbling around. Shoplifting and robberies through the roof. Areas of downtown Vancouver that are unsafe to go to. It's absolutely destroyed the city. And that's not proof enough for Justin Trudeau to reverse this hideous policy. So Vancouver's in a bit of a bind. But even while all this is going on, the councillors in Toronto, here in the GTA in Toronto, they are discussing implementing Toronto as another safe city for drugs, decriminalizing it and allowing this kind, heroin or whatever on the street. And even with what's happening in Vancouver, they're actually entertaining the thought of implementing that kind of a policy in Toronto. It's insanity. It's insanity. Trudeau just skates from one scandal to another. The man is crazy, but he's also dangerous. And this week, this week during question period in Parliament, Pierre Poilievre, the leader of the Royal Opposition, the Conservative Party of Canada, Pierre Poilievre stood up and called Trudeau a wacko. He was forthwith removed from the chamber for unparliamentary conduct and told he can't talk like that, even though he's telling the truth. Oh, well. So, meanwhile, in the University of Toronto and McGill University in Montreal, students, pro-Palestinian protesting students are setting up encampments and blocking off university entrances and stuff and protesting. They've just taken over the universities. It's absolute madness. Absolute madness. By the way, this is going on big time in the United States. The pro-Palestinian protests are happening in Britain, all over the place. Yeah, the students, and a lot, especially in the States, you look at the crowds, look at the people that are protesting. A lot of these people are paid, really professional protesters. These action groups will hire them, and we've seen this in every protest going on, every Black Lives Matter march, every whatever it is. You can spot the paid protesters, and a lot of them you see pop up at event all over the place. But anyway, that's a fact. So yeah, it's being driven. This isn't a grassroots student protest, righteous indignation kind of a thing. This is socially driven for a purpose, to cause all kinds of disruption. And these young kids are so brainwashed anyway by the left from the time they were babies that they don't even believe women are women anymore. I mean, you can tell them anything, and that, it's madness. It really is. And so this is going on. These pro-Palestinian, to the point where Jewish people are nervous. It's like the pogroms again. It's like Night of the Long Knives for them. The Jews are under attack by, anti-Semitism around the world. Something we said, we should never forget. We should never let that happen again. Well, it's happening. In fact, just last week, at one pro-Palestinian protest in London, and I mean, there's been several, I think they happen all the time, and some of them have gotten quite violent, but this particular one, and there's video, this is how we know about this. There was a big protest going on across the street or whatever, and this young Jewish man that happened to be wearing his little skull cap, he wasn't walking into the crowd, he wasn't waving a flag, he was just walking by, heading home, and he was stopped by police and said, "You got to get out of here." And he's like, "Excuse me?" And they said, "Well, there's this protest and you're being openly Jewish, and your presence here might antagonize them." And, basically the cops are scared of them, and they don't want them to get any more violent than they already are. But you can't tell this Jewish lad he was scapegoated. "You got to get out of here. You're being openly Jewish." And the guy's going, "Excuse me, I'm just walking home." Said, "No, if you don't leave, I will arrest you for being Jewish." Can you imagine? And it got on the news and all hell broke loose. But this is happening all around the world. The whole thing, to a large degree, is manipulated, and it's manipulated for a reason. There's a couple of things you've got to look up to understand what's going on. You've got to go read about the Cloward-Piven strategy, which is basically just overwhelm the system with so much that all the social systems break down. They're seeing that. That's Cloward-Piven. Another book you should read if you can get your hands on to understand this sort of soft fascist manipulation of society. Rules for Radicals, 1971, Saul Alinsky. To understand what's going on now, you got to understand those things, and then you'll be able to spot it, and you'll say, this is a manipulation. This wouldn't happen. But here's the thing, nothing happens by accident. Just remember that. If you see something happening, somebody wants it to happen. Just like if you see something on the news, it's because that's what they want you watching. Very frightening stuff. It's all a manipulation when you start seeing that. And you're seeing that across the Commonwealth. You know, you're seeing the same things across the Commonwealth. You know, this strategy, it's apparent in these countries' immigration policies, social policies, the LGBT and transgender, pushing that whole agenda. Things like, a really good example is, even though it's just a stain on the soul of Canada, the assisted suicide program, they're talking about it in British Parliament right now. Should we start killing people? Make it legal. Well, I'll tell you, in Canada, we call it MAID, M-A-I-D, Medical Assistance in Dying. Hey, folks, we're number 1 in the world for killing people. They want to expand it to allow for mental illness. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean you're depressed? Does that mean you talk to your cats? You see visions? What does it mean? Or you just hate your job, you hate your wife? What depression, what is it? There's some very fuzzy lines there. Truth of the matter is, once you start that ball rolling, it just gains momentum as it goes downhill. Pretty soon they'll allow anything goes. They'll kill you. They'd rather kill you. It's cheaper to kill you than give you that hip replacement. You know, it's an option. Oh, you want to be... One veteran, she was in a fight with the Veteran Services for years. She had injuries from being at war, this Canadian veteran, and she needed one of them stair lift things put in her house, right? And she was fighting for the funding for that, and they kept turning her down, and she had this one appointment last year, and she goes in, and the guy said, because she was saying, this is awful. This is awful. I feel terrible. I'm having to fight this. It's costing me money. I'm on a shitty pension. I don't have any money. Nobody will help me. Nobody. And he's like, well, you sound like it's so desperate. And perhaps we can help you. And he referred her to the MAID program. Oh, I know your life is very frustrating now, but we can end it all. We can kill you. Can you imagine? And then so she went to the newspapers with that story, and they called out the person that did it and, a couple of head rolls. But, things go on. And I'm sure for that one that has been called out, there are many other incidences like that. In a situation like that, of course, there's going to be, and just like what's happening in Vancouver, and they're still just, proposing maybe doing that in Toronto, even as ludicrous as that sounds. I've seen on British news when they talk about this and what's going on in Canada and saying this is madness. But at the same time, the British Parliament, the British government, is discussing this very proposal, the MAID program, an assisted dying bill in Britain. Can you imagine? Even though you can see what's going on here and see that it's not good, and still do it yourself. Why? Because it's part of the wider agenda, just like climate change and save the earth and carbon net zero and all of those things. The policies that drive governments that come from the World Health Organization, the policies that drive governments that come from the World Economic Forum and their members, two of which are Prince William and the King. And look at their agendas. Look at the royal family. I'm saying they're part of the elites that drive the system. They're right in there with them. They are part of this larger agenda going back to Prince Philip and the World Wildlife Fund that he founded with a couple other rich elites. It wasn't about saving the rhinos. It was about closing off vast tracts of land and the animals and preserving them for their use, but limiting the use of those land and resources by the general public. They've done that in every Commonwealth country. There's all kinds of land that is set aside already that you can't go on. Look at all the trouble Harry's in right now with the nature reserve and the Baka people and what's been going on in Africa. As they head to Nigeria this week on a faux royal tour, they're gonna milk it, and we sit and watch. Meanwhile, the king does nothing because he knows that it's okay. It's all part of the wider agenda. Harry's playing his part, folks. They're all guilty of it. We've got Charles and his dream of spreading 1,000-hectare wind farms all across the arable land in Britain, therefore cutting out any chance for farmers to grow anything. That's okay, because it's part of the agenda. We've got William, who we think is the good guy, and the Earthshot Prize paying out millions of dollars in prize money and grants to people that can come up with good ideas to mask the limiting of your resources, really. It's all part of the same elite driven agenda to bring us to our knees, to limit our resources and our rights so they can do as they please. That's what it's all about, folks. And it's global, and it is very, very visible. This agenda is very visible in the Commonwealth countries of, well, Canada, Australia, Britain, the big three white Commonwealth countries. Look at Africa, what a mess. But, you know, there we go. It's all part of the same thing. And the royals are knee-deep in it, folks. And that's your royal connection to the news of the day. Have a great day, everybody. Hope you liked this. Leave me a comment if you'd like me to do more commentaries on the news, what's going on like this now and again. Let me know, and we'll talk to you next time. Take care. Bye for now.